Hello, how's it going? Thank you guys for tuning in. This is Terrell Jackson, and you are tuning into the Don't Avoid Success podcast. Give yourself a hand. Shout out to y'all, man. If I had that the sound effects board right now, then I would cue the cheers and something else cool, but this is just the beginning, so I'm gonna be very transparent, very open, but I want to be very informative and most of all, very sincere about inspiring you to be the best version of yourself that you were divinely created to become and have the capability. So let's get right into it. The title and the main concept and message and theme of today's chapter is called The Sneaky Saboteur, Unmasking People-pleasing Habits. But I just want to welcome you. I'm Terrell Jackson. This is the Don't Avoid Success podcast. And today we're just reminding you that we're here to guide individuals beyond the grip of people-pleasing habits, right? So people-pleasing is essentially when we talk about people-pleasing habits, we're talking about the habits that involve putting the needs and desires of others ahead of our own, often to our detriment, right? Putting the needs and habits of others first, often to our detriment. And I want to be very clear that when I talk about people-pleasing habits, it's not saying that you should be selfish. It's not an excuse to be selfish. It's not information so that you can just justify serving self. I'm all for service. I'm all for serving other people. I love to make people laugh. I love to make people feel welcome. I love to make people feel comfortable. I love to make people feel at home. And if you're watching this podcast, you're probably the same way. You probably have a level of influence. You probably have the ability to display leadership skills, which is essentially walking into a room and understanding the temperature of that room, engaging the overall tone of that room, and then becoming the piece of the puzzle that makes the experience a masterpiece. So a lot of times when we talk about people-pleasing habits, the opposite of people-pleasing is not being selfish. The opposite of people-pleasing is not being selfish. The opposite of people-pleasing, from the perspective that I'm speaking about, is service with healthy balance. And I want to make that clear. So now that we understand what I mean by people-pleasing, I just want to discuss how these habits subtly creep into our lives. So, have you ever been in a conversation and based on the conversation that's going on, it goes to a place where it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable? Maybe you don't agree with what someone is saying, or maybe you have a real life experience that opposes their perspective, but that sense of awkwardness that just kind of grows, and it's just like, and you just kind of awkwardly smile at them like, yeah, I know what you mean. We say stuff like, yeah, I know what you mean. Nah, I get you. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And that's fine when you're in a certain settings where you don't want to be going back and forth. You just move on. But what happens when you constantly go around the same person and time passes and you never, ever, ever state that you disagree, or you never, ever, ever inform them that you have a different set of information that, quite frankly, will enlighten their perspective, possibly. So you just sit there. And that's one of the subtle ways that people-pleasing habits creep into our lives, creep into our conversations, creep into our interactions. And we find ourselves sometimes not even being our authentic self because we're avoiding that awkward exchange, or we're avoiding the possibility of conflict because someone is very strong about how they feel. They're very convicted about what they think they know. And you know, for lack of a better term, you're probably going to step on their toes. I'm just saying, you're probably going to step on their toes. You're probably going to hurt their feelings. You know, the information that you have or the experience that you have might one-up them, even though that's not what you're trying to do. You just know it's going to be awkward. So you refrain from speaking or telling the truth. And I've been in that situation a lot of times. And so, you know, one of the things that I realized is that you can't go through life and agree with everything everyone says and think you're going to continue to have peace within yourself. Because here's the thing about it. Becoming a yes man just to go with the flow is eventually, possibly, going to lead to frustration or inauthenticity. And I'm not saying you're going to be you being fake, but what I'm saying is you'll find yourself spending time in interactions that are not genuinely benefiting what you want to do in life. And it's okay to move on from people in life, meaning I don't have to spend as much time with this person. I don't have to, discuss the same thing with this person. But it comes to a point where you gotta say to yourself, I'd rather be respected than liked and admired. The Bible says, be weary of those who everyone speaks well of. Be weary of those who everyone speaks well of, because we all know, you and I know, that no one is perfect. Not a single soul is perfect. Therefore, if you have two imperfect individuals, how is it that we feel we should be able to come together and have a perfect interaction, a conversation, and agree with everything and not have any, conflict, so to speak, or disagreements? So what I would suggest to work on is first just recognizing when the people pleasing is getting to a point where you are stopping continuing to be who you genuinely are at your core. Now I'm all for being humble, listening before you speak, being open to different opinions. But when it comes a point to where people are not there, when it comes to a point where people are talking to someone that's not there, then that's time to make the adjustment. What do I mean talking to someone that's not there? You're talking to me, you're having a conversation with me, but I've bent and compromised so much to avoid conflict that my yes is no longer a yes. And my agreement is no longer an agreement. So I've essentially just become what you need to keep thinking like you want to think. And, I'm going to throw out a term right now. I'm going to throw out a term right now. Continuing to put yourself in a situation and continuing to subject yourself to environments where you can't be your authentic self and you're not speaking up for yourself with the hopes of avoiding conflict, I'm going to go on record and call that reverse toxicity. Matter of fact, that's going to be episode number 2. I'm writing it down right now. Reverse toxicity. Because it's really my fault I haven't told you that, you've been bragging about going to junior college and making straight A's. I haven't even told you yet that I have a whole bachelor's degree. You've been bragging that you've been to college, and she haven't even told you yet that she didn't have to go get a 4-year degree and she already making $90,000. You bragging about what you know and what you read on YouTube about arguing, and you don't know you talking to a lawyer. You talking about all this stuff you want to do, and you don't even realize that the person in front of you been there, done that, can write a book about it, but just letting you talk. But I call it reverse toxicity because, they had the right to interject at any moment. You know what I mean? So that's one of the ways people-pleasing habits can disguise themselves in our daily lives, right? So people-pleasing, aka overextending yourself, is merely a reflection of a mentality. So beyond the words, I want you to look beyond the words people-pleasing, and I want you to think about imbalance. Look beyond the words people-pleasing and think about lack of boundaries. Look beyond the word people-pleasing and think about I'm getting away from who I truly am. Think about how you're not growing simply because you don't want to go through the tough stages, the rough stages. And I've been there. So I want to talk about how these things can sneak into our daily habits. And one of them I just talked about. You interacting with people, and that's conversation. How about another one? Being on the phone too long. Man, I'm telling you like this, bro. This is one of the biggest things that I had to learn. Simply because I went to school out of state. And so when I would have a phone conversation, it's because I literally hadn't seen people in months and months at a time. But when I came home, I failed to make the adjustment, bro. We only get so much time during the day. And I'm just now realizing that because I have a son. And when my son gets home from daycare, I literally only have a couple of hours or a few hours with him. Really a couple of hours after he eats and after he showers and, does his essential thing. And he's a baby. I only literally have a couple of hours with him until he goes to sleep. So I have a saying. I tell people, you can call me what you want, but just don't call me during family time. Call me what you want to call me, but just don't call me during family time. And, that's why it's important to set boundaries in our daily habits, because you can have text messages, you can interact with people on social media, but the trick of distraction, and this is how people-pleasing sabotages our progress sometimes, is because we lack focus. Not because we don't have the ability to focus, but because we won't cut off the conversations we've been having. We won't cut off the Netflix. We won't cut off the social media. We won't cut off the argument, with our significant other, just to move on. You know, I had a quote on my watch that I put and says, "Normalize letting other people win arguments so you can go on about your day." And I put that reminder on my watch. Normalize losing arguments so that you can go about your day, because you can't get that time back. And so when we allow all of these things during our work time to distract us, then we have to make sure that it's something that is really going to benefit someone else's life and not hold us back. Because that's where the sabotage happens. I've talked to somebody 2, 3, 4 times this month for an hour, 2 hours, and neither one of us has made ground on what we've been talking about. Let's cut the conversation off for a second. And I'd rather you be mad at me when we get off the phone and you go make actions than for me to keep you on the phone pacifying what you're going through. And I've done that because I have a heart to help people, man. I have a heart to have people not struggle, because I feel like I've been in situations where nobody was there for me in the specific way that I needed them, and I didn't know how to communicate well what I really needed. So therefore, I tend to take extra time with people trying to figure out what they need. But guess what? I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm just a person, and you're just a person. And a lot of the interactions we have are pacifiers and crutches. And I don't want to be rude, but, you know, I'd rather for you to temporarily offend on your way to being able to evoke permanent change. I'd rather you to temporarily offend people on your way, on your road of progress, so that eventually you can inspire permanent change, rather than continue to go with the flow and to be in agreement with everybody and never cause any problems and never be disruptive. But that's where it stays. That's where you stay. That's where the other person stays. That's why it's important to check our daily habits, check our daily routines, check our daily attitudes, you know. And that's why, you know, we can't overcommit. We can't overcommit, you know. We can't overcommit, because sometimes our commitment is just seeking approval for habits that only we developed and nobody asked us to develop. I heard somebody say it like this. I think it was Ice-T. He said, "Look, bro, if you ask me for a ride to the airport and I give you my yes, that means that I'm going to have to wake up earlier. I might have to go put gas in my car. I'm putting miles on my car. Then I have to go pick you up, take you to the, go through traffic, take you to the airport. And then if I'm not on time, you get to be mad at me." You know what I'm saying? For telling you yes to something. You get to be mad at me if I don't do everything that you need me to do just because I said yes. That's overcommitting sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And we fail to recognize these behaviors in ourselves because it's so common. You know, you hear people say, "Man, you can have the shirt off my back." Like, there are very few situations that I've been in personally where that was actually absolutely necessary. And I'm the same type of person, you know, I'm the same type of person that will give you the shirt off my back. But, you know, it's like, Is it necessary though? You know what I'm saying? Is it necessary? But anyways, I ain't gonna go off on a tangent. You know what I'm saying? But we gotta recognize the signs, because it's specific signs and red flags to help you identify people-pleasing tendencies. You find yourself being frustrated with the people who never ask things of you because you're overextended from people who always do. That's a red flag. Let me say that again. If you find yourself being frustrated with the people in your life who never ask anything of you, when they do ask, because you always are there for the people who constantly always need something, that's a red flag. What do I mean by that? You went and gave a person a ride, you let somebody borrow some money, you went to birthday parties, baby showers, weddings. You know, you've been to everybody's events. And let me help you carry this in, and can you go grab that table and set it up and put those chairs over there, and can you sweep, and can you go, you done all these favors for everybody else, then you get home and your wife or your girlfriend asks you to go to the store, and you like, man, why you didn't call me on the way on my way here? Or they want you to wash the dishes or do chores around the house. Now all of a sudden you're a little frustrated because you really don't want to do it, when you're not really understanding that the person that's asking you rarely asks you something, and you're only frustrated because you've been overextending yourself with other people, and that don't help you in your core daily environment, which for a lot of us is our home with our significant other, or with our roommates, or with our teammates, or with our coworkers. How many people have so much stress and strain from family interactions that when they go to work, they're frustrated? And these behaviors can hinder personal growth, because if you're tuned in right now, I know without a shadow of a doubt, you have the potential to be great. You have the potential to be an administrator, a leader, a business owner, and executive. Because you have influence, you have the ability to have emotional intelligence when it comes to the emotional sensitivity when it comes to the needs of others. But what I need you to do is stop misplacing that and misallotting that, and keep some for yourself so that you can maximize who God made you to be. But what do I mean by that? Think about this. Michael Jordan, considered one of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest basketball player to ever live. Right? Now imagine if he spent his whole week going to different local basketball courts, playing different people, just to show and prove to everybody that he was great. He wouldn't have been able to come and compete in the official capacity, in the official environment when it counted. So understand how many basketball games that Michael Jordan gave up, as far as outside of the regulations of the NBA, outside of the actual practice facilities in the gym with other elite players. Imagine how many parks and one-on-one challenges that he actually turned down in order to be able to apply himself fully to the official capacity that could benefit him the most. And that's all I'm telling you, and that's what I had to learn, is that there are some things that we're doing and helping people that's off the record, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, everyone doesn't. The Bible talks about when you give in silence, give in secret. You don't have to let everybody know what you do for people. But maybe you want to let everybody know because now you need the validation. Because you're not actually where you want to be, and more importantly, you're not actually where you could be because you've been distracted by your giving. Now you want people to acknowledge your giving and validate you because you haven't realized that it's taken away from us being the best that we can be. So what things do you have to ignore so that you can show up in the official capacity of when it counts as who you can actually be fully? For some of us, that's cutting other people off in outside conversations so we can be fully present emotionally, physically, and spiritually there for our families. For other of us, it's we need to stop showing up to every event because we really could be having more savings to go on a better vacation. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to not scheduling a vacation that you can go overseas or you can go out of state or you can stay in a nicer hotel, but you've been going back down the road for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year just to help take out the trash for a relative. Come on, bro. We got to learn about that. You know, and we got to recognize that. And we got to be able to overcome it. You know, but as we wrap it up, you know, this is the first episode, and I just basically just barely kind of touch the basics of it. But, you know, I want us to really look into the idea that there's a level of greatness that's inside of you that you're going to have to go through some awkward moments to get to. That you're going to go through you're going to have to hurt some people's feelings that are close to you and that really, really love you. You're going to have to disagree with some people that are close to you and really, really love you. You're going to have to deal with them misunderstanding you and being mad at you and being upset with you. You're going to have to face rejection in some areas that you never thought you would. But beyond that is another level of functioning. And that's why in this podcast, I'm going to continue to talk about these sneaky habits. I'm going to continue to talk about those daily activities that we really don't pay enough attention to. Because if you like me, let's have an honest moment right here. If you like me, you're doing all right. You don't ask people for stuff. You got a lot of things that other people don't have. You know, you might be able to be with the person that other people are envious of. You got a little resume behind you. You're doing okay. But if I'm honest here, you know it's another level. You know there's another level. And I'm here to get you to understand that you can be taken advantage of if you're intelligent and educated. You can be taken advantage of when you're the person in a group that has the most money in your pocket. You can be taken advantage of when you're the strong person. Because the Bible says, you know, God uses the weak things of the world to get to the strong. You know what I'm saying? And he said he uses the weak things to, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but I'll put it in the description, but it's basically saying he uses foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He uses weak things to get to strong people. So it's okay. And this is a platform where we can admit it. But with that being said, I'm going to shut this podcast down. And thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on the Don't Avoid Success podcast. This is Terrell Jackson, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.